Hi, I'm Andrew Armstrong and welcome to the back office teardown lab. You can see I have a growing collection of dead lithium cells which I've yet to part with. But one of the main problems with them, some of them just die like this, they just don't hold their charge as well as they did. And it's this case on this particular one, the BMS actually died. I think the cells inside it are actually okay, so you might be able to harvest those. But oftentimes you get this, where this is a laptop battery and you can see it's gone very puffy, and the first time normally you notice something's amiss is that the case is starting to bulge or come apart. Now if you've got a car, you might have one of these types of power jump starter things, and they're great. Don't get me wrong, when you need one of these you are very thankful that you have one. However, one of the problems with these is that they tend to live in a very I guess challenging environment. You've got hot weather, cold weather, and they tend to discharge over time. So oftentimes you might be able to wire them in so they normally have a USB charge on them, so you can plug them into your car, so at least when you're driving around they keep tip top. Now this pack is quite a few years old, and when I went to use it yesterday it didn't work properly, and you can see there a definite bulge, and this is something that's designed to offer, I guess, hundreds of amps, 600 amps of power, which is kind of worrying, you know, if this doesn't work. And the weird thing is about it is it kind of does go on, and it, you know, it says it's got full charge. If you can see that there, it's almost full charge. And remember, I did try to crank this a few times. And if I do the button, the torch works, the USB power works, so it's probably quite good as a power bank, and it's still capable of giving enough current for those. However, you know, I'm very wary because it's just so bulgy, and we definitely don't want that. So I thought, let's have a look inside. It's probably going to be binned anyway, which is a shame. But let's see if there's anything we can do with, you know, with these, because we, you know, have a growing number of them, and they come with really good hardware. I mean, these things actually are quite nice. Good connection. These are very tough spring. I mean, this wasn't a cheap one, and you might have some of those other ones on Amazon. I think, is it the Norco? Absolutely fantastic. First thing I noticed though, there is a challenge. It's a square, a triangle shaped screw, and I notice on our screw kit I don't have that. Fortunately, I do have this little set with that little electric screwdriver. Let's see. That's a big triangle. It's not that one. A 2.7 triangle. Not that one. 2.3 triangle. That's looking like a match. Now I'm gonna have to use the driver as a handle, I think, on this one. Let me clear the workspace again. Handy little kits when you can get hold of them. Right, maybe for Christmas you could treat yourself. Just the fact that it's got so many bits is just a godsend in cases like this. Oh, that was a weird noise as I was unscrewing that. Definitely there was some pressure there. I'm very cognizant that, you know, from watching those videos of people taking apart phones and having them blow up in their face, that I'm kind of worried sometimes with these. Generally I'm quite blasé about the whole lithium cells, but these ones look like they've got enough where you could really have some trouble, and the fact it's holding some current, definitely a little bit worrying. On the top here it's saying start current 300 amps, peak current 600 amps, and capacity 15,000 milliamp hours. So that sounds like a big number. Now I'm not really sure how big that is and what does it compare to. So while I'm unscrewing this last couple of screws, this one says it's 8,333 milliamp hours, so bigger than a gaming laptop battery. It's all battery all of the time. Now, if you were in the olden days, you used to have quite big lead acid jump starters, and they would also be always dead when it came to using them. So I think all in all though, the lithium packs like this actually do last longer in my experience. Okay, so let's take the lid off. Look, it's actually even broken its own clips there, so that's how stressed it is. It was really trying to force itself apart. Just going to be a bit ginger around here because obviously there's some connectors. And you've got that little lens assembly. Holy smokes, there's some scary looking things going on in here. Crikey. Look at that. Before we get onto that, I love this design. Look, you've got the boost and the light buttons just going straight through. They actually do feel tactile, so these little domes are tactile in themselves, and you can see they're just pushing down this piece of plastic, which in turn pushes some little teeny tiny tack switches. Great bit of design there. Very nice. Right, look at the size of that cell now. That is one puffy boy. I was kind of thinking I'd quite like to dismantle it, but I'm not going to, because what it is, it's not using anything like these types of cells. It looks like it's using the little flat jobbies, which are all basically a big flat bag of goodness. Now to get this out, I think we're going to have to go in a little bit further, but very cautiously now, because I really don't want to disturb it. And you can see there are some nice fat contacts here that connect to this, which will have all the BMS circuitry, everything like that. If we can get the battery off in one piece, it would be very nice. So yeah, proceeding with caution. Don't punch her, don't punch her. I could imagine the factory where these are assembled has some systems in place to be quite cautious. Oh, that screw's broken. So even this PCB was damaged because of that inflation of the cell. And look, bending it backwards, you can see it contains the control circuitry that's probably measuring not only the temperature of the battery and things like that during charge, but also providing the power. So when you actually plug this into an external power source, it's very likely, yes it is, this is actually controlling the charging of the battery. So we'll unplug that, and then you do have the big high current connections underneath, which we're going to have to slice through in a moment. But let's unscrew this. Now I do feel these things are quite intelligent. In the early days, these batteries were quite simple, and they were kind of just dump their current straight out to the connectors all of the time. But these now tend to go through some big old MOSFET type devices to make sure they only give current when it's demanded. And they do have some trickery inside to make sure you haven't plugged them in the wrong way, in your wrong terminals in your car. Now I do have this from our Nintendo Switch battery swap, so it was quite handy for that. Let's hope it can do the job on here. Yes, it's a very handy little tool actually. If you haven't got one, I think a plastic scraper like this, and it's quite blunt, which means it gives you a bit of confidence you won't bust the battery. And you can see that is even fatter. So it seems that the case was really holding it, keeping it constrained. And look at the back here, oh my word. Right, so before I continue, I'm just seeing if there's any way we can disconnect anything. It doesn't look like we can. Let's just go in and have a look first. So you've got not one, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are double stacked. 7, 8 of these guys. And these are a TDM 3430. And I'm just going to check it on all of them. TDM 3430. And I suspect the fact that they are doubled up in many cases, that these are all wired up in parallel. And we'll be able to handle and switch many amps, because many amps is what this board will deliver. And I'm just going to get a multimeter and let's just check if we can read any voltage. The meter is ready, so we'll switch that into volts and let's have a little look see here. So we do know it was coming on, we saw that. So there we go, 11.98 volts, and it does say it's an 11.1 volt device. So it's presumably still capable of putting out some volts, just not the current, clearly just not the current, because you won't be able to start your car with it. Now, how do you remove this from everything else? Well, I think one answer for this is heavy duty stuff, and I'm going to first start with the scissors, because I want to just cut this negative terminal off if I can. And oh, I'm getting there, but it's not really doing a great job. I think we're going to have to upgrade to the tin snips. I'd really like, you see, just to get half of this battery disconnected, and this is definitely the easiest side to do it. Just going to do some nibbles. Yeah, that works. I'm going to zoom in so you can see some nibbles there. So that's the bit of tin, and I'm very carefully... Oh, something fell beyond. Something fell behind me at the exact time I cranked on that. I thought my world came to an end. Okay. Possibly, actually, you could wear eye protection if you're working on something like this, because I don't know if this stuff would explode stuff into your eyes. It would be amazing to disconnect this. Now, I do not have a soldering iron that's going to have enough current to do this, and I don't think anyone will. The type of irons that do this are very thick metal bar looking things that take many, I suppose, kilowatts. So what I'm just going to have to do, I think, is just nibble on this a bit. Now we have disconnected the other end, so hopefully there's no circuit path we have to worry about. If you imagine a good set of jump leads, how much current they can carry, it just goes to show you what this piece of wire is going to be. And it's obviously a bit of fat flex, but it will be shoot. Oh, more care needed. Jeez, that was scary. Right, let's cut through these strands. There. Oh, I tell you what, my heart is in my throat right now. It just jumped as high as I did. But we are disconnected. Yeah, so what you saw there was just a bit of arcing onto here. So clearly there's enough current in here to do that bit of arcing. But crikey, look at the size of this thing. It is absolutely fearsome. I'm petrified. I'm not lying. I'm absolutely petrified at this battery. And I don't really know what would be the safe way to dispose of it, honestly. If you feel that you've got something like this which is so puffy and liable to explode, how the hell do you get rid of it safely? I mean, I suppose you could throw it in a recycling centre bin that says lithium cells, but honestly, I feel that feels almost naughty to do that, because it feels like you could cause further problems. Now look at that. That is some super fat cell, isn't it? Crikey. I'm really wondering, how would you let out the power that's in this cell? I mean, if you took this out into the garden and stabbed it or shot at it with something, and it would cause obviously a catastrophic failure, but maybe that's the only way to be sure. You know this thing is dead. Or you could maybe, and I know being an idiot not thinking this is the first port of call, hook it up to something and just leave it running. I mean, it's clearly safe enough that it's not blowing up right now. You could put it on something metal like this DVD drive and leave it running. Let's see if I can find something to draw power off. I may have found the perfect thing here. So I do have this somewhat unfinished project. If you saw a while back, I made this cooling apparatus for a motorhome fridge, but it's not fitted yet because frankly the weather in the UK is so bad it's not needed. If you recall, you needed these fans to increase the efficiency of your refrigerator. It had a switch which allowed you to adjust the temperature in which the fans would kick in. You have the thermocouple probe and you have the power connection. So if I can solder these power connections onto this battery safely, it should work fine. So I'm just going to be very cautious with my little soldering iron and see if I can get some of these things to stick. And you saw what happened before with the arcing. I'm desperately looking around for some glasses. I do have some reading glasses, that's right. In the last year I have taken to the point where I need them. My eyes have just given up. And the eye person said, the optician, I think that's what they're called, or ophthalmologist, said, yeah, it's likely your eyes have been basically bad for a long time and they will have been compensating, and that may have been giving you headaches and various things, and now they just can't be bothered anymore. They've given up. So I did ask the question, by the way, if you were ever curious about it, will wearing reading glasses make my eyes lazy? And they were going, well, not really. The fact that if you're at the point where you need them, they need them, and you're just doing yourself a misservice by dragging it on. So if you've got a problem when you're soldering and you can't see properly, like me, just get on it, get to the ophthalmologist. Look at that, That's brilliant, isn't it? Now I kind of wish I attached a multimeter, sorry, an ammeter in this circuit so we could see what's going on. Now the fans are moving that way, which means they're blowing this way, and there should be an arrow. Yes, there's an arrow confirming that. So all I need to do really is just position this rig like that, and it will keep itself cool while it's discharging this big old fat boy. So I'm going to leave that on there. And you know, frankly, look how much current must be going through these fans, because they're really kicking off quite a lot here. But it's doing the job. I can feel massive airflow. It's hard to demonstrate airflow. I mean, I've got papers on the other side of the desk are blowing all around. I've got this bit of paper here. Let's see if that shows you. So there's a bit of paper. Ooh, not really. You can't really see it, but there's quite a deflection there. So I guess I could conclude the video now, but I'd probably quite like just to leave this run for a while, and then maybe try to just dismantle this just a tiny bit more. I don't really want to take this blue paper, plastic off, because I feel at the moment it's all that's keeping it from really going nuts. However, in a discharge state, I think we'd feel a bit safer removing it. So let me put that to sleep. Night night, see you later. It's very much the next morning, and this has been going for approximately 15 hours. I'm actually quite surprised. I kept checking in on it, and it was still buzzing away. However, it has stopped now, and it does appear totally devoid of life. So if we try to put the multimeter on it now, you can see it says 1.6 volts. Excuse the noise in the background as well, of course. It's the next morning and there's a cacophony of sounds in the place. So I'm just going to chop these wires off. I know I really should unsolder them, but I can't quite find my soldering iron, and I haven't had my coffee. I was just so eager after waiting for so long to get into this guy. So I'm going to be a bit cautious again, because still it might still blow up in one's face. Now the bit I am interested is just to see the connections here, because we can see from the outside that it's 3 of these big old cells bonded together in some way. But electrically, what's going on? There we go. Now I did see some YouTube videos and they looked very dubious indeed, of somebody who would gently puncture these to release the gas and then put a bit of tape over them, which seems like a bit of a dodgy thing to do. I mean, it might work to alleviate the pressure, I suppose, but you do have that danger in that whatever's making the gas is obviously something in the battery that's broken down, so that's probably not good anyway. And 2, you've got lithium obviously inside the batteries in some state, and if I'm not mistaken, lithium is one of those things that reacts with water, because I believe it's potassium, lithium, all those sorts of things that you had at school, which when they touch water would explode or do various similar things. So yeah, anything that would compromise the waterproofness of these cells is definitely something a bit dodgy. Right, so we're getting there. There's definitely things here. I mean, I'll zoom in a bit so you can see. There's definitely items. I'm just gingerly working my way through, because you've got basically 3 batteries or cells. I don't know how you describe them really. I mean, they're probably self-contained, aren't they? So they are kind of like 3 batteries. They're all being hooked together, but there will be some means in here for detecting temperature, etc. I just want to see what's going on, how that's all hooked up. There we go. I feel we're getting to the bottom of it now, slowly. So that's your big old tang, and actually look, it's just bonded to one bit of foil like that. Okay, and there is another one. separator. So you've got to be careful because these could be insulators still on these blocks. Right, I think we're getting to the bottom of it now. I'm just going to put this bit of insulation tape over that so we don't short that one out. You see this white wire's coming here. It's sharp. And we're there. I've not actually seen any temperature probe among all of this. Actually, it's kind of interesting, but what I have seen is how this is structured. So you have here your positive out, and you have here your negative. So that's your positive and negative, and it's going through the cells like this. So it's coming in here, crossing over, these two are joined, and then these two are joined, and it's coming out. So that's your 3.7 times 3, which is 11.1 or so that we were measuring. So these aren't actually driving 12 volts, they're giving you a lot of current at a slightly lower voltage, but just enough to get your car over the hump, it seems. Interestingly, on this one there's this big block here, which I would be curious to see what it is. It's a very dense foam. In fact, there we go, we got it out. And I don't know why there's not one on the other side, so it's a bit odd in its construction. And this, there you go, that's the final cut now, so you've actually got all three separated. And if you're wondering then, why are there so many wires? Because we were speculating these wires were to do with something to do with temperature. I suspect it's just to do with how you're going to charge the cells. So when it's charging them up, if you imagine you're giving it a voltage that's probably less than this whole 12, especially if you're charging it off USB. So I suspect what it does, it's basically charging each cell individually in some respect, because you could apply power to these two wires from the BMS, see these two, and that will charge that one. The two white ones here would charge this one, and the red one and the white one would charge that one. Although it would be a bit dodgy with having two white wires, you'd have to be pretty careful how you wire those up. So who knows? Well, all I know though is that this is not going to be reassembled. I don't think it would be economically viable, well maybe it might, to fix this, because you can probably get a decent one for £40 to £60, which I know isn't cheap, but they'll probably last you at least 5 years. And you won't have to worry about trying to reassemble this nor solder that big fat one. However, if you've got the tools and the skills, why not give it a go? I mean, there's nothing wrong with this. This would be totally recoverable by just adding the correct number of cells. But from what you're getting from one of these old ones now, you're getting one USB. The new ones have inverters and all sorts on there, so you probably wouldn't bother. This is cool though, isn't it? It would be interesting to see how this buzzes out. So you'd be able to just use this as a switch, but it's got these additional wires, because I suspect it's doing something a little bit more fancy, because it's not just the switch, it's actually got the sensing to detect polarity and whether or not it should even switch that power in. And I suspect it's on board IC here is probably doing it, and this board's just responsibilities for something else. I don't think we'll ever find out.